Welcome everyone, I am the Depressed Dior, and this is Arkham Horror the card game. Alright, so this may look familiar to some people because this is Night of the Zealot, but what we're going to be doing this time is do the Return to Night of the Zealot, which will change a few things. For the most part, it's going to change scenario cards and probably some of the setups and things like that. For the most part, it just lets you know that, hey, you're replacing some of the encounter sets with more upgraded ones. For the most part, it generally increases difficulty, though in some cases it also fixes some issues that the original version of some scenarios had. So I'm mainly doing this mainly to kind of take a step back from some of the current scenarios I've been trying to run. I tried to do a few more of them and ended up kind of getting overwhelmed with all the rules and stuff. And also on top of that, I'm constantly trying to try out different investigators and new decks and things like that, and it just kind of got me a little overwhelmed to the point where I was constantly just making mistakes to the point and just not getting the amount of fun I wanted to get out of it. So I'm using this opportunity to be like, all right, we'll go do some of the return twos and mess around with just some characters I may not mess around with in more that I consider maybe not as strong in some cases. And in some cases, it's just or characters I'm just particularly I feel like I'm not very good at getting the potential out of them. So with that, I'm going to have two investigators as always. I am going to be playing on easy difficulty, no taboo. And this time around, we're going to be playing with Marie Lambeau and Sister Mary. Marie Lambeau will be the lead investigator. I know in the previous campaigns, we joked around with various guardians and mystics and never really did anyone that actually never played a mystic that actually cast spells for the most part, or at least not any of the major ones, or at least not the major staples rather. So I'm going to go ahead and use this opportunity to go ahead and try that out with Marie Lambeau. Granted, out of all the mystics that are actually like spellcaster types, Marie Lambeau is probably not one of the best, to be honest. But like I said, I'm kind of using this opportunity to go ahead and just play some characters I would otherwise not play. So, with that all decided, I'm going to go ahead and dive into this. The other reason why I'm doing the return to is I don't actually have to read the story, which I do like the story and all that. It's just, it's a lot of talking and reading and all that stuff. So, just being able to just kind of focus on purely the gameplay, I think will be do good for me. Anyway, Marie Lambeau, the Entertainer. She has 4 will, 4 intelligence, 1 fight, and 3 agility. She's a performer sorcerer, and while you have 1 or more doom among cards you control, you may take an additional action during your turn, which can only be used to play spell cards or activate spell activated abilities. And then as a Elder Sign, it's +1, and you may add 1 doom to or remove 1 doom from a card you control. So yeah, it's very interesting. One of the common staples for a lot of the spellcasting mystics is the Arcane Initiate, which is a very cheap and very efficient ally, and very good that for card draw in the case of mystics who don't exactly have the best card draw by themselves. But the catch for the Arcane Initiate is it spawns with a Doom on her, and so that could definitely influence how you play that particular ally. And Marie Lambeau is kind of in a similar boat. You want to have Doom on her, but you don't want to have Doom on her to the point where you're speeding up the objectives too much. Essentially, you have to make sure that the Doom that you have on her and the extra action you're taking for that actually, helps you. It has to help you tempo-wise. So it's very, very interesting. She also has a 6 health and 8 sanity. So her deck size is 30. She has spell cards 0 through 5. There are some spell cards that are not mystic, but they're not that many. She does have access to regular mystic cards 0 through 3, and then neutral cards 0 through 5, and then occult cards level 0, and then up to 5 other level 0 seeker and or survivor cards. So yeah, very kind of a very strange deck building combination there. She does also have to have Mystifying Song, which is her exclusive, Baron Samedi, who's her exclusive weakness, and then 1 random basic weakness. Marie Lambeau always had a voice to die for. People called her the Smoky Velvet. They said she was born to sing jazz, that she had the magic touch, and maybe they were right. After all, the songs she heard in her dreams ever since her grandmare passed away were like nothing she ever heard before. The vocals sounded like no language spoken on Earth, the notes twisted and warped. Why her grandmère had moved from New Orleans to Arkham, Marie would never know. People used to call her grandmère a witch. Maybe there's more than just jazz in Marie's blood after all. So yeah, so as far as the occult level 0, that's mainly just to get access to certain research cards that will eventually turn into spells or something along those lines. So like some of the research cards we've seen on some of our seekers, for example. So let's see. Let's go through our deck. All right. So for her exclusive, where is it? Mystifying Song. Mystifying Song, 3-cost event, 2 wilds. It's a spell song. It's fast to play, and you only play it when the agenda would advance by reaching its doom threshold. Until the end of phase, the agenda can't advance by reaching its doom threshold. Remove Mystifying Song from the game. A very powerful exclusive card. It's one use, but being able to just be like, all right, I'll buy you guys another turn type situation is pretty good. Or in a situation where maybe there's a lot of doom that's like on cultists and stuff, you can use this to be like, all right, buy us a turn, get the cultists back under control, and then continue onwards. It does cost 3, so you do have to have the resources on hand to actually make this work. And it does act as an unexpected courage if you just want to commit it. Her exclusive weakness is Baron Samedi, Lord of the Cemetery. He does take up an ally slot, so if you already have an ally out in play, it will unfortunately kill off that ally. Revelation, put him into play, and he cannot leave play while he has less than 3 doom on him. When any amount of damage is placed on an investigator in Baron Samedi's location, you will take an additional damage on that investigator. As a lightning bolt, you can exhaust him to put 1 doom on him, and if he has 3 or more doom on him, discard him. So this can be kind of hard to get rid of, depending on the scenario. If the scenario has very, very short doom thresholds, you might be just stuck with this guy. For the most part, his effect isn't too devastating. It's just extra damage, and you generally don't want to get hit anyway as a mystic or at all. Period. But he does also eat up your ally slot, and you generally want that ally slot for Arcane Initiate. The good news is he does allow you to easily put Doom on him, in which case you can put Doom on him and then just go to town with your usual mystic actions. And then the random weakness I got this time was the Thing That Follows. It has 3 fight, 3 agility, and 2 health. It's a monster curse. The spawn location is farthest from you, and the prey is bearer only, so it won't automatically engage anyone else. It has hunter, and when this thing would be defeated, instead you shuffle it back into the bearer's deck to the ends of the earth and back. It does 1 health and 1 horror for damage. So the thing that makes this thing kind of annoying is the fact that it gets shuffled back into your deck. But everything else about this is not too devastating. Pretty much any sort of fighter type character can definitely take this thing on and kill it. It's just a matter that this thing will eventually come back. It doesn't even come back in the bottom. It just gets shuffled back in. So it just keeps on eating up your draws in the worst case scenario. What's kind of nice about this is in most cases this will spawn farthest from you, and as long as it's not a small map, you don't have to have that risk of like, oh, I can't draw at the end of my turn, else I will get this thing and it'll hit me or something like that. But this thing actually will usually just spawn far enough away that you don't get into too much trouble. That being said, the first scenario we're doing is the Gathering, which is not exactly a big map. All right. Besides that, let's go ahead and go over the deck here. I think this is our first time doing Spellcasting Mystics, so it's pretty much the gist about Spellcasting Mystics is their main advantage is their high willpower. Marie's isn't particularly great. Usually you want 5s, but she has 4s. But the idea with Mystics is they can use their willpower instead of the usual stats for a lot of things like evasion, fighting, or investigating. The catch is for the spellcasters is they generally have to have an asset of some sort or a card event to play to actually make it so they can actually use their willpower. For example, have Rite of Seeking Out, which is an asset that takes up an arcane slot. This thing will essentially allow her to investigate using her willpower. And then there are kind of 2 different asset spells that you can go. You can either go once with charges, which tend to be very good tempo-wise, but the disadvantage, of course, is they can run out of charges, in which case then they become a dead card. The other option is you go with one that doesn't have charges, and tends to be a little bit more stable as far as keeping it on the board and actually being able to use it. But it tends to be very, very generic, where you're just doing like one damage and or getting one clue or something along those lines. Also, in the case of like Rite of Seeking and Shriveling, which are charged spells, usually if you draw a symbol token, it tends to do a negative effect, such as doing horror to yourself or ending your turn. For the non-charged spells, a symbol will generally do something positive, though it's usually not something as great as being able to get an extra clue with Rite of Seeking, for example. Besides that, so yeah, her main staples for doing her flex type stuff is Rite of Seeking and then Shriveling. Shriveling, of course, does extra damage. So Rite of Seeking gets her extra clues. She does have access to the staple mystic cards like Promise of Power and, of course, Ward of Protection, as is Deny Existence. She does also have, I do have a couple of String of Curses, which for this campaign will actually be kind of useful since we do have Cultist. As for her splash of 5 cards that are either Survivor or Seeker, I have a couple of deductions. What's kind of awkward about Marie is she does have that 4 book, but I mean, usually you'll have a high book, so you can actually do like the investigating through like Seeker type assets or something like that. Marie's kind of split between like, oh, I want to do Seeker stuff or pretend I can do Seeker stuff, and then also being a spellcaster. So it can be kind of hard to figure out where you want to be. So for this, I just grabbed a couple of deductions, and if I ever find like a low shroud location, I can be like, okay, I can throw these out and just do whatever. Let's see. I also have a couple of luckies just to kind of make up for her mediocre stats. And then I have a Hawkeye folding camera. This is an item tool to a 2-cost asset that goes in the hand. As a reaction, when the last clue is discovered at your location, doesn't have to be done by her. You can place a resource from the token pool on this card and treat it as evidence. And then while this Hawkeye folding camera has evidence, it will actually get the more evidence it has, the more buffs it gets. So at 1, it gets +1 willpower, which is good for her spellcasting. Then +1 book, which is good for generic investigating. And then 3 or more is kind of just +1 sanity, which is kind of just meh. This can be pretty awesome if you have 2 of them in your hand and you kind of just stack a bunch of them. But it is kind of awkward because you have to rely on getting the last clue to trigger things. And if you're on a map where there are not really actually any clues to actually grab, which does happen from time to time, it can also become kind of a dead card. It is cheap to get out, and at least the bonus is a passive, and it's not something you don't have to worry about failing. I do have a couple of emergency caches just in case for resources. There is a ally that can kind of go well with Marie Lambeau. I can't remember his name. I think it's David Renfield. He's a mystic ally that you can actually put Doom on him, and the more Doom that you put on him, the more money you get, the more resources you get out of him. But I didn't really want to mess with him in this playthrough, so I went ahead and just threw in some emergency caches just for the cost. I do also have a couple of. Do I not have those cards? We need to fix that. I mean, I guess emergency caches. Actually, yeah. Give me one moment. I am going to switch something out of this. Okay. I didn't. There's actually a card you can also throw in that allows you to play a spell card at a reduced cost. But I apparently am not playing with that card. But that's not the end of the world. It can be kind of awkward to use anyway, so it's fine. It's fine to just use emergency cache. Besides that, we of course got some Holy Rosaries just to get some plus willpower. You can also do St. Hubert's Key if you just want to increase your book stat, but again, I don't really want to juggle that much with the book stat. I do have some Fearlesses for recovering horror. I do start with two mental, what do you call it? Mental trauma. That's mainly because I have 2 arcane researches. These are permanent cards you can get that give you mental trauma, and what it does is whenever you upgrade, the first spell card you upgrade will reduce that cost by 1. And then I also have Down the Rabbit Hole, which will also make it, essentially, if I'm upgrading my first card as a spell I'm upgrading, I can reduce that cost by 3, which is pretty significant. Besides all of that, what else we got? We do have a couple of Moonlight Rituals. This is just a way to get rid of Doom. I mentioned the Arcane Initiate earlier. I could put she spawns with Doom on her. So this is a way to kind of get rid of that Doom if you need to. Besides that, I have a couple of Drawn to the Flames just to get some clues without needing a check. I do have a flashlight, again, just to kind of be used with either the deduction or just her raw intelligence stat. And that's kind of it. This deck is not the best, and I don't expect it to be too great. But like I said, I'm just going to mess around with her and see if she can actually get anything done. Like I said, there's definitely some tweaks I would definitely do. Anyway, that's it for her. So let's go ahead and move on to Sister Mary. Sister Mary, the nun. She has 4 willpower, 2 intelligence, 3 fight, and 3 agility. Believer Blessed. During setup, you add 2 Blessed tokens to the Chaos bag. We got to mess around with a little bit of Blessed tokens in some of our campaigns where we had the upgraded Holy Rosary. But for those who don't know, Blessed tokens are the opposite of Curse tokens, where if you draw one, you get +2 to the check. And you have to draw a token right after that. And then once the skill check is resolved, any revealed Blessed or Curse tokens are removed from the bag. You can have up to 10. There are 10 Blessed tokens and Curse tokens that you can get and either put in the bag or seal in some form or fashion. As a reaction, when the round ends, she will add a Blessed token to the Chaos bag. The recent update to the TTS module has included this little reaction thing to remind you to actually do it. And we'll see if that actually helps me or not. And her Elder Sign effect is +1, and if you succeed in the check, you will get a Blessed token in the Chaos bag. So yeah, she has a very unique kind of support style setup, even though she's a Guardian. She does have 5 health and 9 sanity. She does have 2 mental trauma, because I do have 2 arcane researches for her. And then let's go ahead and take a look at what she has. Oh, sorry, not that. We need to look at the back of the card. All right. She has 30 cards. Guardian 0 for 5, Neutral 0 to 5, and Mystic 0 to 2. She does have a Guardian Angel as her exclusive, Crisis of Faith as her exclusive weakness, and a random basic weakness. The more Sister Mary learns of the strange and arcane forces that sometimes manifest in this world, the more certain that she is that she has been set upon a path to ward off these forces and protect the innocent wherever possible. Armed only with the trappings of her church and an unshakable faith, Sister Mary seeks out every supernatural threat she hears of through her fellow priests and nuns. Other members of her church may dismiss such things as medieval nonsense, but Sister Mary knows the real evils that exist in the shadows, and she knows that if such evils are left unchecked, they will bring ruin and horror to all of creation. So what's interesting about Sister Mary is since she does have she has better willpower than she does fight. This tends to lead her to be a little bit better at the spellcasting type stuff, but she only has access to level 2 spells, or level 2 mystic. But there are some Guardian cards spell cards that do go up to higher levels that you can also take advantage of. So, like I mentioned, she has Arcane Research. She does have Runic Axes for a little bit of fighting, but this deck is kind of based off a Arkham DB deck that I found called Magic Mary, and I've kind of made adjustments since there to kind of fit my preferences. So despite her being a Guardian, majority of this deck is mostly Mystic. There are, I think, a grand total of 5 Guardian cards in this deck right now. 2 Prepared for the Worst, 2 Runic Axes, and a Wolf Mask. The Wolf Mask goes pretty well for her to make up for kind of very mediocre fight and agility. So with that, she can at least reliably fight and invade if she needs to. She does have a couple of Spectral Razors. So the idea here, she does have Arcane Initiates. Arcane Initiates are not unique, so you can have more than one on the board. So the idea is, of course, to try to get out of spells as quickly as possible. She does have things that bulk up her willpower with Holy Rosary. She does, of course, have some of the staple spells right now, Rite of Seeking and Shriveling. Some of these I will be upgrading, and some of these I will be filtering to other spells. I do have Storm of Spirits, which just kind of just an AoE spell that can hit multiple targets. What's kind of neat about this one is it's very good against swarming enemies, which are not in this thing, but there's also the situation where you might have to fight a lot of enemies at one time, which sometimes, the last time we did the Night of the Zealot, we did get kind of swarmed at some point, so Storm of Spirits can help you just hit multiple targets. Of course, I got String of Curses to deal with cultists. Oh, here's the spell card I was talking about before that reduces cost. Uncage the Soul. It's a spirit spell, not a spirit spell, a spirit card. You can play it. When you play it, it allows you to play a spell ritual card from your hand while reducing its cost by 3. rather helpful as far as tempo and economy is concerned. I do have emergency caches for additional economy. The big other issue for Guardian and Mystic cards is they're rather expensive to get out. So any sort of economy I can get will definitely be beneficial. As always, I do have the staples, Ward of Protections, Deny Existences. The idea, of course, is just to use Arcane Initiative to get through my spells as quickly as possible and make up for the lack of card draw. I do have Robe of Endless Night as a body slot. I think this is our first body slot item. Asset, 1 agility, item clothing, has 2 health soak. This is also to make up the fact that Sister Mary, despite being a guardian, has only 5 health, which is not particularly great. But the neat thing about Robe of Endless Night is you can, as a reaction, you can play a spell card, and or when you play a spell card, you can exhaust it to reduce the cost of it by 1. Can be helpful. The thing is it's rather expensive to get out with 3 cost, and you generally want to get it out early so you can actually, benefit from it. You essentially have to play like multiple spells to kind of make up for the cost. That being said, it does provide 2 health soak. Besides that, I do have Runic Axes right now that's without any fancy buffs to it. Yeah, that's kind of the gist of it. For her exclusives, she has Guardian Angel. It's an asset 2 cost, and it has 3 health soak. And it can actually be used to take damage for not only from Sister Mary, but any investigator that's at the location or an adjacent location. And any damage that's assigned to Guardian Angel, you can add a Bless token to the Chaos bag. So this thing provides 3 health soak and essentially provides 3 Bless tokens. It's rather helpful. Her exclusive weakness is Crisis of Faith. It's a madness. For every Bless token in the Chaos bag, you must either replace it with a Curse token or take 1 horror. So this can be pretty dangerous depending on when you draw it, because if you draw it, of course, when you have a lot of Bless tokens and not a lot of soak, you'll be forced to pretty much turn everything into curses. I guess the most dangerous state is if the bag is full of both Bless and Curse tokens and you have no soak, then you could very well get killed by this. Granted, there's not very much curse that we'll be adding besides Promise of Power, so hopefully it won't be too bad. Her basic weakness is Stupor, which we have encountered before. It's actually kind of dangerous with Sister Mary right now because I don't actually have a way of healing Horror on her right now. But again, it only affects Parlay, Draw, and Investigate. And with Rite of Seeking, the only investigating she'll probably be doing is once per round anyway. So that is what it is. All right, and those are the decks. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and call it here. You can already see that the setup for the Gathering is different for the Return 2 version, but we'll deal with that in the next video. So I am the Depressed Dior. This was Arkham Horror the Card Game, Night of the Zealot, or Return 2, Night of the Zealot, and I'll see you guys next time.